Gidon, I think let's start off with you. 5 years operating from Lanseria Airports, and this has only put your company in really good stead.
It's been a good experiment. At first it was an experiment. There'd been a couple of other airlines that had failed out of Lanseria. It was just a small airport at the time. And really what Lanseria offered was a very simple, easy process for customers. And what we found out about traveling about our customers is that they actually don't want to be at the airport. They want to be at their destination. They want to get through the airport as quickly as possible. And Lanseria offered that opportunity, as well as a low cost base, because air travel, as you know, with increasing costs and fuel costs, etc., is becoming unaffordable to many people. And it's very important for us to have an airport operation that is efficient.
Well, Gavin, perhaps you could offer some insights. I mean, you basically are the manager at Lanseria Airport, and we're talking about other opportunities in other airlines. Gidon just alluded to some airlines not being able to go through the mile when it comes to Lanseria Airport. What made Kalula so competitive, and what kind of opportunities lie ahead for other low-cost airlines?
I think the opportunities that Lanseria offered to Kalula, the convenience, it helped set up Kalula. We developed a very good working partnership. I think that was critical. And through this interaction between Kalula and Lanseria, we developed the market. We made the awareness of Lanseria as an alternative to Oliver Tambo. And I say that there's good working relationship, which we never had with the other airlines. Has proved successful.
Javier, let's take a look at the domestic markets, and how have privately owned airlines and also airports been relatively key to the development of the overall market in South Africa?
There's been a couple of experiments, so to speak, by airlines venturing into smaller airports to develop feeder nets, if you like. Generally, it's about the economic growth in the region that it ultimately determines the success or viability of a particular route. Privately owned airports, there's currently the two bigger ones, which is Lanseria and Kruger-Mpumalanga.
How many privately owned airports do we have in South Africa?
We have 63, but then I must add that 61 of the 63 is very small, little airports, privately owned.
And overall, how many airports do we have, including
we have 137 that's currently licensed, of which 20 odd is commercial.
Oh, Gidon, I mean, looking at the competitive structures here, and we're talking about tariffs, and we're talking about the cost of doing business with the likes of AXA or Tambo, and this is perhaps what is also giving other low-cost airlines a competitive edge by using privately owned airports. Give us an indication of your different experiences when you look at OR Tambo and you look at Lanseria.
Well, they're vastly different, and cost is the main issue at the end of the day. And what we're dealing with from an AXA point of view is massive infrastructure that's gone into airports. In particular, the one that's irked us over the years is the investment into King Shaka, which was around about 7 billion rand. We've still yet to see a strong case for building a new airport in Durban. The old airport, it wasn't the most beautiful facility in the world, but it worked. That was shut down. And that 7 billion has got to be recovered.
And so it's a white elephant now, the old airport, at this point.
Well, yeah, it's been basically, abandoned. We'd love to start flying some flights there. We haven't been successful in that. And these massive infrastructure costs have got to be passed on to the air traveller. And that's really the sad part of the story, is that people that could afford to fly or would be able to fly cannot fly because the airport charges are too high.
Well, Gavin, perhaps you could offer some insights. Early last year we were talking, AXA was asking for a 133% increase in tariffs. We know that the regulator was talking about a 40% increase in tariffs. What makes you so competitive? Is it because you're not investing as much in infrastructure and all those peripheral add-ons and the other things that we see at the likes of OR Tambo that perhaps you won't experience at Lanseria?
Well, we still face the same cost that AXA has, but being a smaller company and more focused, we develop what is required to meet the needs of the airline. And through engagement with the airlines, we establish what is required, and we build what is required, and not the palatial mansions that the competitors built.
And Gawie, I can see you're giggling there almost. What is the global trend when it comes to airport ownership? I mean, there is quite a big concern that airline routes that shows potential growth soon become relatively saturated. We're talking about airfares, and then you've got airlines and airliners that perhaps want to be more competitive, and they drop their tariffs to uneconomical levels to just try and pull in the business.
The global trend is to decentralize, so to speak. It's point-to-point flight. Your traveller these days don't want to go necessarily to a hub and wait for a connecting flight. So it drifts towards the smaller airports, so to speak.
Fantastic. Gavin, I mean, looking at that trend, do you think that we could adopt a similar strategy in South Africa?
Very much so.
Okay, well, tell us about what you would like to see.
I think there's this point-to-point is certainly developing. This trend that has been promoted of a big hub, everything has to go through it. I think the South African consumer is seeing the benefits of going to smaller airports, adopting this point-to-point traffic mode, and we're positioned to accommodate that need. I think we've strategically positioned in the greater Johannesburg, sitting in the northwest of the city. Access to the airport has been dramatically improved, so it's making it easier and easier for people to get to the airport. I think things are going to continue on that line.
How many phone calls have you had recently from airlines that want to come and operate at Lanseria?
We are talking to two major airlines.
To two major airlines. And what are your sentiments with regards to that? Because it's just going to make things more competitive for Kalula when you've got other companies operating at Lanseria.
Well, the big thing for us is to have competition between airports, because competition between airports will bring down the cost of operating out of airports. So we'd like to see many more private airports. It's not easy to establish a private airport. As Gawie says, there's only two major private airports. We see that changing over time. There will be more private airports in the major metropolitan areas, and that's good news for us. So I think the focus for us is to try and foster competitive airports, because that will bring the rates down.
Well, Gavin, perhaps you could offer some insight into what is requirements. What are the requirements on owning a private commercial airport? And I'm sure we're talking about a lot of regulation here. And do you think that we have seen deregulation coming to the fore? Do you think that still needs to filter through?
Well, we have the same regulations that apply to an AXA airport or a state airport. There's no difference. So we have to comply with the same rules and regulations as imposed by CAA. So from that perspective, there's no difference at all.
Gawie, I know that you're quite affair with the regulations and things like that. Do you think that all South African companies at this point in time are adhering to the regulations, or do you think that we still have a long way to go?
I won't say a long way, not in the commercial airport field. Certainly we have our challenges, especially with municipal airports. But then those are mainly non-commercial airports, and the focus in a commercial or a municipal budget is much more pressing needs than maintaining an airport.
Well, you spoke about the smaller municipality-run airports. We keep hearing about mismanagement there. Is that a fair comment to make?
There is challenges, and I would say the reason being that the persons that's attempting to run an airport is not necessarily, it's not their strong point. They have municipal things to worry about. There's housing needs, there's health needs, there's lots of things that's on top of the stack before getting to an airport.
Gavin, your thoughts on that? Do you think that the state should basically leave all airports to be run by the private sector? And we're talking about a bigger theme here, privatisation.
I think I agree with you. Gawie's raised a valid point. They've got more pressing issues to worry about. Their core is not running airports. They need to bring in the competencies to run airports, and that's where the private sector must step in.
And Gidon, I mean, you've been working closely with AXA for many years. We're seeing tariffs increasing, we've seen changes in management as well, a lot of worries about the finances not being handled adequately, and then who bears the brunt of it? Basically the consumer as well. What do you think your experience is going to be going forward from a tariff increase perspective?
Well, I think the point that Gavin touched on is the key, is that a partnership between the users of the airport, which is the airlines, and the airport is the key to productive growth in the future. And if you can work together, and this is where I think we haven't worked well with AXA, and hopefully we can work better in the future, where we can say, look, this is how many people we think are going to come through your airport, and therefore you need to build another runway or another terminal. That will be the best way forward. And I think if we can continue that partnership, and if we can continue to see more competition between airports, it will be good for air travel in South Africa. The
16 billion rand spent on upgrading airports in the country, someone needs to pay for it. And again, I allude to the tariff increases that AXA was talking about of 133%. They only got 40.7% allocated to them. We know that they're going to be pushing for higher tariffs. When do you think that's going to happen? Don't you think it's going to be inevitable, Gidon?
Well, I hope not. Because if it is inevitable, then there's going to be fewer people travelling. That's the bottom line. So that's the trade-off. And ironically, that's exactly what AXA would want, or any airport operator for that matter. They want more people to travel. There's a point at which people won't travel. That consumers are very price sensitive, especially you know, that new market. You know, we all talk about the new market. There were all those people in South Africa that used to travel and have always traveled, and there's this very exciting new market on people that have never been on an aeroplane. Those people can't afford massive airfares, and if we want to bring them into the fold, we've got to keep costs under control.